South Wales, May 6th, 2001. 31-year-old Jason Williams hasn't been seen for 12 days.
And he certainly would have been in touch at least by phone.
Police arrest 2 men, secure witnesses, and obtain damning DNA evidence. But this is no open and shut case.
There was no body.
Could Jason still be alive? With the police unable to find him, his family turned to a local psychic. But will the hard science of the police or supernatural skills find Jason first? Lahore, a quiet commuter town on the south coast of Wales. A person doesn't have to be missing for very long before somebody notices. Unemployed father Jason Williams has not been seen for 4 days. His sister Julie is worried by his lack of contact.
Jason was a very family-orientated person, very devoted to his son. He was very much a hands-on dad. He certainly would have been in touch at least by phone to speak to his son. So that was when the alarm bells first were raised.
Detective Chief Inspector Ken Isaac has lived and worked in the area for most of his life. An area where serious crime is extremely rare.
The missing person report in relation to Jason Williams commenced in the village of Lahore. There were general house-to-house investigations and speaking to his family and associates. So we expected from an early stage of the missing person inquiry that he would be found within a week or so.
Most missing persons in the UK are found within 3 days. After a week, the police still have no definite leads. The family grows desperate.
Leaving messages on his mobile phone for him. Obviously, every time the phone rings, you wonder, is it the police ringing with news?
But everybody kept an open mind that perhaps he's gone visiting somebody out of the area.
After 9 days, and with little information from the police, Julie takes advice from a relative and contacts psychic Sue Evans to see if her worst fears are true.
Psychics have the ability to speak to spirit, so that if that missing person is dead, then psychics would be able to communicate with that dead spirit.
If she was a genuine article and could do what she said she could do, she might come up with a piece of information that would lead to finding him, so there wasn't any decision to make, really.
Sue claims that tarot cards focus her psychic intuition and will allow her to discover what happened to Jason.
I use the tarot like some people use a crystal ball or tea leaves. And it's a way of me linking into their lives and finding out what's happened to them. To me, the tarot is how I communicate with spirit, as well as being able to predict.
Out of the 78 picture cards, Sue turns over the image that most strikes fear into those not familiar with the tarot, the death card.
The death card means change. Doesn't always mean death, but it does mean change. But because it's next to the moon, which indicates sadness to me, it does mean that there is sad changes around you. This is the Chariot, which means trauma. This is how you feel at the minute, as if everything has tumbled down around you, which is caused by all these preceding cards. And this is the 9 of swords, which indicates stress to come along with this.
The cards did show us that there was trauma around Jason, but we weren't absolutely positive as to what had happened.
But it does indicate that something has happened. So we'll have to remote view this if you want at a later stage.
Usually if people have, as she put it, gone over, she can pick them up fairly quickly. But I think you are always aware as well that there are charlatans out there that will prey on people's grief and make claims that are not true.
You know, it's not going to be cut and dried. It's one of those situations that it may take a while to get to the bottom of.
Sue says she can sense a disturbance around Jason, but is unable to contact him in the spirit world. This is a ray of hope to Julie that her brother may not be dead after all. 12 days after his disappearance, Sue tries to contact Jason again. She figures that where one psychic has failed, 2 will succeed. She calls upon her sister Kathleen.
We're asking Spirit to help us to find what happened to Jason.
Sue uses remote viewing an unproven phenomenon that psychics claim allows them to witness events from a spirit's point of view.
We ask for protection and a gold light around us to help us work.
When I remote view, it's like watching a video or a television. You see details. You can see the layout of furniture, you can see the layout of rooms, you can pick up the atmosphere, which would lead up to a murder. You can then watch as if you're standing there as a witness.
Sue claims she is transported back to the murder scene with Jason as her spirit guide.
I found myself in a living room, and there was an older gentleman there and a younger gentleman, as well as Jason.
I see that there's a bit of agitation going on between Jason and the younger man.
What the psychic doesn't know is that her visions seem to match details revealed by a local man who has been brought in by police after claiming he witnessed the murder.
This started as a missing person investigation, and I always kept an open mind. Is this a missing person investigation, or is this a murder case?
Alan Sinfield says he was there when Jason was viciously attacked by 27-year-old Richard Davis.
Sinfield and Jason were friends. There was a vast age difference, some 20 years. What he told us is that they'd been drinking at his house. Davis and Williams had an argument over the fact that Davis saw Jodie Sinfield's telephone number in Jason Williams's phone.
All of a sudden it erupted like a balloon going pop. And there was a struggle.
Davis pulled Jason Williams onto the floor, straddled him.
And he was just sticking the knife in him in his chest and things in some kind of a vengeful, nasty way.
With no apparent knowledge of Sinfield's confession, Sue describes an older man and a younger man in the room with Jason, then a drunken murder. She has no doubts what this information is all about. Jason wants to ensure his killer is brought to justice.
There is an element of wanting justice done because somebody had taken his life.
It's 12 days since 31-year-old Jason Williams was last seen alive in Lahore, South Wales. This missing persons case takes a dramatic turn when a 57-year-old local man, Alan Sinfield, is interviewed by police.
This was turned into a murder investigation, primarily from the disclosure by Sinfield to the police saying that Richard Davis had killed Jason Williams, and he was a party to the disposal of his body.
For 24 hours, these details are not released even to Jason's family, yet somehow psychic Sue Evans' vision of the murder appears to match Sinfield's confession. The police remain open-minded over what has happened to Jason.
And we weren't sure at that stage, was he involved in the murder? Did he alone do the murder and blame Richard Davis? And they were things that we were hoping to clarify. Richard Davis was also arrested that night, and he was given an opportunity to give his version of events.
Davis protests his innocence and claims that although he had an argument with Jason, he left Sinfield's house with him still alive.
The interviewing officers felt it was a challenge, as if it was some type of game with him, or challenging the officers doing each particular interview.
The police act fast and send in forensic teams to Sinfield's house. Now, both Ken Isaacs and Sue have terrible news to deliver.
One of the most difficult jobs for me was speaking to the family and telling them that he had been killed.
Initially, when we heard that he'd, been stabbed, it happened like probably 2 streets from where I lived. It was very strange to think that all that was going on in such a short distance from home and you didn't know anything about it. We knew that these people had been charged with his murder, and I didn't feed that information to Sue, because if I did that, I would never be able to know whether she was genuine or not.
I have to tell you that I have been in contact with Jason's spirit, and I feel he has passed over. I'm sorry to have to tell you.
Sue tells Julie about her vision of Jason being in a room with 2 men and the drunken stabbing. Her details match the facts that the police have revealed to Julie earlier.
With regard to the information she's come up with, the accuracy of it, I can't logically tell you how she could come up with all those details.
Jason's spirit also seems to be providing Sue with more clues that could bring his killer to justice.
And Jason was pointing out that there would have been parts of the room splattered by the blood, and some had splattered onto a radiator.
With regard to the information she's come up with, the accuracy of it, I can't logically tell you how she could come up with all those details.
We need to see now what's happened to him since.
Julie is won over and approaches the police about working with the psychic, but they refuse the offer.
My take on the psychic involvement is that a psychic did not assist the investigation, and to my knowledge, South Wales Police has not used a psychic to help to prove any inquiry.
Yeah, I think, police have their hands tied by procedure, by budgets, by professional guidelines and standards. I mean, families are not tied by any of those things.
Frustrated by the police's response, Sue and Julie launch their own psychic hunt for the body, led by the spirit of Jason.
The key to any murder investigation is identifying where is the attack site and where is the body deposition site. We had an attack site, but we didn't initially have the body deposition site.
Without a body, the police could not be confident of convicting anyone for murder. At Sinfield's house, the forensic team have a breakthrough.
We moved back the carpet, and we found there was 2 large pools of blood, and under the radiator were some small dots of blood.
Sue claims she predicted there would be blood close to a radiator. For her believers, this is proof that the psychic has access to the world of the paranormal. Psychometry is a controversial technique that supposedly allows seers to explore psychic imprints of objects touched by victims. Will this help Sue find Jason's body? She calls in her psychic troops.
Deep breath in.
We were asked to sit within the circle, and then I think a photograph and some things of Jason's, like a T-shirt, were passed around.
It helps when you have more people in circle, because each person's got a different psychic ability. So all these combined builds up the whole picture. So we saw that the body had been loaded into a van and taken up towards the Brecon Beacons. We saw the body being left very unceremoniously, but there was a tree that the branch of a tree had broke.
Are we anywhere near where your body is?
Jason showed us a Celtic cross. The unique thing about it is that he said there were 3 of these crosses.
And she said, this is near the spot where he was put.
I just keep saying it's so obvious. You're missing me.
Near there, that's where his body was.
South Wales, May 2001. The race to find the body of murder victim Jason Williams is on. Police detain 2 local men, Alan Sinfield and Richard Davis. Sinfield has pointed the finger at Davis, but he maintains his innocence. Whatever they say may be irrelevant. DCI Ken Isaac knows that without Jason's body, a murder conviction is practically impossible.
It was important for us to recover Jason's body for 2 reasons. Primarily, to prove the case of murder. There's been very few convictions or murder convictions where a body hasn't been recovered. And secondly, for the family, so they could have closure on the case.
At the same time, psychic Sue Evans has launched her own search. She claims that she is in touch with the spirit of Jason, and he has given her clues that will lead to the location of his body.
Where we were in terms of the jigsaw at this stage was that we had more pieces to put together to build the whole picture. We needed to know where the body might be to help find Jason.
Jason's sister is convinced by Sue's powers and asks the police to use her supernatural skills. But in the UK, busy murder investigation teams often discount the work of psychics. While Sue and Julie embark on their own hunt for more clues, the police act upon Sinfield's admission that he helped Davis dispose of the body.
Following Richard Davis killing Jason Williams, they wrapped his body up in black plastic bags. And he and Sinfield went around the Brecon Beacons looking for a place to dispose of Jason's body.
Assigned this near impossible task of finding Jason's body in over 500 square miles of moorland is search expert John Williams.
The area is so big, Unless we had sort of some indication as to where Jason was, then we were literally clutching at straws.
What the police have that Sue doesn't is the help of one of the men who dumped Jason's body.
We drove quite a few hundred miles over the days I was with him. I can recall him saying that they drove onto a grass verge at some point. And on my left-hand side, I could see some tyre marks that were on the grass verge. I looked further along the road from where the tyre marks were, and I could see a white bag. On top of the bag, there was a stone. And it just seemed strange. This was in the middle of nowhere. There was absolutely nothing about, and why is a stone suddenly being put on top of a carrier bag?
Sue's psychic investigation has already shown her Jason's body dumped on the Brecon beacons. Will her visions of Celtic crosses and a broken tree turn out to be meaningful?
The first thing I saw at this point, I could see that this area was flattened, and that was quite obvious. You could then see the tree trunk here, and you could see that some bark was removed from the main sort of trunk area. It just looked as if somebody put their foot in it. I was more than satisfied that this was a scene, more than satisfied.
As Sue predicted, it seems that Jason has been dumped near a broken tree. Now police meticulously search for his body or further evidence.
It was literally a shoulder-to-shoulder, slow-time search from the roadway into where I felt Jason was placed.
We'd heard that they'd actually sealed off an area in Brecon and forensic teams were searching it.
For 12 hours, police search experts painstakingly examine an area that is almost the size of a football pitch. Miraculously, they discover a human hair.
He came up trumps because his hair was found interwoven with grass and bracken. For that particular scene, to find his hair was fantastic.
I think at that point we were hoping that they would find him.
The hair is sent off for DNA testing to secure a match with Jason. After 24 hours of searching, the police are forced to acknowledge the worst.
There was no body. I carried a cursory search, but there was no body.
It was quite frustrating, really, when they came away empty-handed.
Amazingly, Sue's vision of the broken tree has turned out to be accurate, but somebody has been back to the site and Jason's body is gone. Without it, a murder conviction is a near impossible task for the police. Over the following months, the police scour the Brecon beacons using helicopters, dive teams, and sniffer dogs, every method available to them, except the powers of a psychic. Julie believes that where the police have failed, Sue will succeed.
I feel it's definitely near these 3 Celtic crosses. So we decided to go in the car and go up and have a look for ourselves to see if we could find any of these landmarks that Jason was showing us.
As we were driving along, we rounded a corner and I spotted a church behind some high sort of conifer trees.
And we found a Celtic cross. There was a Celtic cross there.
And as we approached it, I noticed that I could just see a Celtic cross in the grounds, and I said to Sue, "There's one Celtic cross there."
Julie turned on and said, "Look behind." And there was 2 other Celtic crosses. So these were the 3 Celtic crosses we felt that Jason was showing us. The clues and the jigsaws were coming together, and we just had to trust that he'd guide us to him.
In South Wales, 2 very different investigations race to find the body of murder victim Jason Williams. The police search the Brecon beacons but find no corpse. Jason's sister Julie turns to psychic Sue Evans. She is certain that Jason will be found near the 3 Celtic crosses that they have discovered in an old Welsh churchyard.
The fact that we actually found 3 Celtic crosses in one churchyard, which I think is quite unusual anyway.
You could feel his spirit around you, and you would feel a nice warmth.
I thought about it, and I really can't think how logically she could come up with as much accurate information as she has.
I would never have known these were here, and I do feel that Jason did draw us towards these to show he's in this area.
Sue is certain that Jason is nearby. Julie supplies the police with the psychic's vision, but they prefer not to act on information allegedly from beyond the grave.
So I'm used to them being skeptical I'm used to not being acknowledged by some of them, even when what I've set out to do has happened. But I feel Julie did feel a lot of frustration because she'd be going there and saying, well, look, we're doing this, we're doing that, why aren't you helping?
The police have the confession of Sinfield and strong evidence pointing towards Davis as the murderer. But without Jason's body, taking Davis to court is risky. A conviction secured without a body is virtually unprecedented.
My understanding that there's been less than a dozen convictions in British judicial history, or it was at that stage, for a conviction of murder without a body. So we were mindful of that.
The police meticulously pieced together a package that aims to prove that Jason is dead even without his body. It includes vital information from the crime scene.
We got an interpretation to the blood. There was a large pool of blood. So anyone who would have lost that amount of blood would have been seriously ill at that particular time. So that helped to support the fact that Jason Williams didn't leave the scene that night.
The hair discovered in the forest comes back with a DNA match with Jason. What Sinfield was saying all along seems to be true. Then detectives interview Davy's girlfriend, Jody Sinfield, and she confirms that he admits to stabbing Jason. The police decide to gamble on the skills of their forensic team, and in February 2002, Davis and Sinfield are put in front of a court of law. Sue's claims that she has spoken to the spirit world will also be put to the test.
It was spooky, for want of a better word. As I say, when certain things were coming up, you could actually feel the hairs on the back of your neck going up.
Julie claims that Sue continued to provide her family with visions of the murder, including details of the part that Davis played, the nature of the attack, and how Jason's body was moved. Now this information corresponds with what Julie hears in court.
They realised that a lot of the information that I'd given them was accurate, bang on. This proved that I was on the right track all the way through. Julie did go back to see the police and say, well, Sue had told us all this before it came out, and yet you still refused to let her in on this.
The thorough police investigation leaves no room for doubt. Sinfield gets 2 years for perverting the course of justice. Richard Davis is found guilty of Jason Williams' murder and sentenced to life. He continues to appeal against this judgment.
We were satisfied and pleased, obviously, with the fact that we had done a thorough investigation. But my thoughts are with the family of Jason Williams.
It's over 4 years since the trial. Jason still has no grave. His grieving family can only pay their respects at a memorial near the site where he was originally dumped.
Jason seems to have accepted things a lot better as the years have gone on. He seems to have a little bit more acceptance of what's happened to him, but the drive is just as strong. He still wants us to find his body. He's still around us, and he is only a thought away, and he pops into my mind quite often, quite regular.
Sue is certain that Jason is near the 3 Crosses, and with police help she could find his body, but the controversy over the intervention of psychics and clairvoyants in criminal investigations remains.
Well, I feel that psychics are another tool that the police can use. I would like to see every police headquarters having psychics on their books.
It's nice to see Callum's dog is still here.
Oh, bless.
Yes, Callum's little dog. Because obviously he has no grave to go to.
No. It's a little present for his father.
I think she's been psychic from a child. To her, that is normal, and I get the impression she can't understand why we find it so amazing, because for her, it's fact.
Sue's relationship with Jason has had a lasting effect on her.
It proves that there's life after death, and it proves that your loved ones care for you after they've died, and that they still have emotions and feelings even though they're dead. I will always keep looking for him, and I will always be there for him for as long as I can.